Howdy readers, I'm Jason. This is Chapter and Verse, and I thought it was time for another little catch-up video. Me crocheting and just chatting with you about a few things. So to begin, I was wanting to let you guys know about 2 or 3 just little channel amendments, we'll call them, that you'll be noticing, that you'll be seeing on Old Blues Chapter and Verse. Now the first of these, and I've got my notes over here, is so I'm not going to be doing monthly wrap-ups anymore, and this is mainly to do just with the fact of how slow a reader I am. So some months I only get 1 or 2 books finished. I feel like it would behoove me to do seasonal wrap-ups instead of monthly wrap-ups, which is nice too for me, because I tend to kind of do a lot of seasonal reading. For instance, when I finally get around to reading Autumn by Ali Smith, I won't be reading it in the spring or the summer, guaranteed. I think what I'm going to do is at the end of each calendar season, I'm going to do a kind of summer wrap-up or a fall wrap-up, winter wrap-up. And that's going to be the plan moving forward. So that's change number 1. Number 2, so as I said in my video on DNFing books and on TBRs, that while I keep a TBR list on Goodreads that's thousands of books long, I traditionally don't keep a TBR list for my immediate reading, for my near future reading. But I'm going to start, and not keeping a long list, I'm going to start doing it by quarters, right? So January, February, March, April, May, June, etc., etc. And I think my wife and I both are going to do this, just to kind of see how it goes. But I was thinking, it occurred to me that between my reading obligations for my 2 book clubs, and yeah, and then just buddy reads here on Booktube, and then trying to kind of squeeze in a few other books here and there, that yeah, for the first time ever in my life as a reader, I'm feeling like I could do that. That I could actually make kind of 3 month at a time TBR lists and be able to stick to them without feeling pressured or resentful that I wasn't getting to read this, that, or the other thing. Because I would be making them for what is basically the immediate future. And so I know what I need to read. I know what I'm in the mood to read. And it could be that this will utterly dissolve, and I won't stick to it at all. It remains to be seen. But I'm going to try it. I'm going to see how it goes. So look for that as well here on the channel. So speaking of buddy reads, so I've been thinking a lot about buddy reads, and I really like them. I really love the idea of them, of having like a little 2 or 3 person book club essentially, and kind of sharing it with a lot more people. You know, I did my first buddy read earlier this year, shortly after joining Booktube, and I did that with Jasmine, and we read Ali Smith's How to Be Both, and we both really loved it. And right now I'm doing my second one, and I'm reading 1984. I'm almost done with it. I'll finish it tonight, actually, with Mark from Words Everywhere. And then later this year, November, December of this year, Barter Hordes, Robert from Barter Hordes and I are going to do a buddy read of The Buried Giant. Well, how many buddy reads? Like, how many buddy reads in a year would be workable, would be doable, would be reasonable? And it occurred to me that like 1 every 4 months might be cool. It's not too much. It's perfectly manageable. So that's going to be my goal starting next year. And I've already got my first one lined up. Mark Nash and I are going to read Overton together. Overton by Adam Thorpe. Adam Thorpe's first novel. It's a book that I've owned for a long time, that I've been wanting to read for a very long time. and it's a book that I think has Mark Nash equal parts intrigued and dismayed. So it'll be interesting. That leads me to the middle of next year and trying to kind of plan out my buddy reads for a year. And I've got a couple of ideas for books and for people who might be good to kind of partner up with on those books. So to those of you watching, I may be reaching out at some point soon. A couple other things. I wanted to just briefly mention tonight how sad I am, and have been all day really, to see that Mark at Richardson Reads decided, after all, to delete his channel, from the looks of things anyway. I mean, all of his videos are gone. I don't know, something came up yesterday where he posted a video that was flagged by YouTube as a possible kind of copyright infringement, something or other, and he didn't see what the problem could have been. I never saw the video, and he was pretty upset about his video having been flagged for whatever reason. I think that was a big part of it, is that he couldn't figure out why it was. And that may be the case. I mean, it could be that YouTube just does this stuff randomly sometimes. And but anyhow, a number of us commented on this like 45-second video he made about how he was going to quit Booktube, and encouraged him not to, and encouraged him to just, you know, appeal the YouTube flagging. Wake up this morning to find out that he had appealed it, that they reinstated the video, they put it back up, etc., etc. But then it looks like he just decided, screw it, and took the channel down anyway. So what I wanted to say is just a couple of things. So to Mark, if you're watching, because I imagine you're still watching Booktube, even if you're not going to create videos anymore, you're going to be missed. You were a booktuber who knew who Wendell Berry was, and there aren't many of us, and one fewer in the Booktube world is making the Booktube community a weaker place somehow. And the other thing is, I suppose in the end, like you know, when it comes to kind of oversight and policing and flags, etc., etc., all this stuff in social media, in the end, we have to ask ourselves, is contending with that occasionally, okay? It hasn't happened to me yet. I'm sure it will eventually. But is contending with that kind of minor policing every once in a while, is it a price worth paying for our creating content, and what creating that content does for ourselves, does for our own kind of emotional and mental well-being, and also what it does for our friends on Booktube. You know, when we decide to leave Booktube, when somebody decides that they've had enough, it's not only themselves that's affecting. They have friends on here, and they have fans on here, people who go to their channel, not just to find out more about books, but to feel as though someone is keeping them company, and some of them go to channels for kind of succor and solace. And you know, when you decide to leave, however valid your reasons might be, you're affecting a number of people in ways that you'll probably never know in many instances. So if you're watching, Mark, I would just encourage you to reconsider, if that's even possible. I don't know, but I would urge you to consider coming back, because you're going to be missed. We need more people who know who Wendell Berry is. So there's that. And then lastly, I just wanted to say a couple of things about the Man Booker Prize long list, which just came out. And it's an intriguing long list. I haven't read any of the stuff on the list because, as you guys know, I hardly ever am at all up to speed on new releases, literary or otherwise. And but there are a few books on the list that I've been very, very excited to read. Michael Ondaatje's Warlight is on the long list, which is cool. Rachel Kushner's The Mars Room, which I think sounds fabulous, is on the long list. And then The Overstory by Richard Powers, which I actually have checked out from the library right now. And has gotten quite a lot of attention here on Booktube, is on the long list. Now, Peter Carey is not on the long list, which makes me sad, and Tim Winton is not on the long list, which makes me possibly sadder. The most interesting thing about this Booker Prize long list is that for the first time ever, it includes a graphic novel. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Now, I read graphic novels. Granted, I don't read a lot of them, but I've read a handful, maybe half dozen or so, in my adult reading life, and I really like them for the most part. I like it as a form. I don't always like the books themselves, but here's what leaves me conflicted. Okay, now the judges defended their decision, I think in a kind of preemptive way, to include this graphic novel by saying it does all the things that great fiction should do. Well, that may be true. But having said that, what then do we make of short stories? Because, well, short stories are fiction. They're not graphic fiction. They're not illustrated fiction. They are literary fiction. And collections of short stories are not and have never been eligible for the Booker Prize, which means that the only time in her publishing history that Alice Munro has ever been a finalist for the Booker Prize is the one time she published a novel. All of those other genius short story collections went completely unrecognized by the Booker Prize because they were short story collections. Had short story collections been eligible in the past, Alice Munro undoubtedly would have won a Booker Prize at some point for one of her books. William Trevor, who was a finalist numerous times for novels of his, was best known as a short story writer and was one of the best short story writers of the 20th and early 21st centuries. William Trevor likely would have been a Booker Prize winner at some point in the past. So if I'm just saying it's a kind of slippery slope, right? Oh, okay, so if we're going to start including graphic novels, or if they are all of a sudden fair game for the judges, well, then what then of short story collections? Is that the next step? Because I think that those are more worthy of inclusion, more appropriate for inclusion in the Booker Prize than graphic novels. But at the same time, then if we start allowing short story collections, then what does that do kind of retroactively for our feelings about what might have been for writers like Alice Munro and William Trevor? Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like prizes, like they make one change and it leads to too many other changes too fast. And a few years back they allowed Americans into the Booker Prize, and now graphic novels been longlisted. And if it ends up winning, I imagine shit will hit the fan in some circles. We'll see. But anyhow, I just wanted to sit down and chat with you guys for a few minutes and get a little crocheting done. And I will leave it there. I'm going to head upstairs and finish 1984 and begin my belated rereading of The Grapes of Wrath for my book club. So I hope all of you are having a great evening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.